And despite heightened security around the country, or maybe in thanks to heightened security for Memorial Day weekend, Department of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly says, basically, we're safe.
Our ability to identify questionable travelers is very, very, very good because of the databases we maintain. I am very, very confident that we're doing a very effective job in protecting. Now, that said, it's a constant threat, and we always have to be vigilant.
Robin Simcox, terrorism and national security analyst with the Heritage Foundation, joining us now. Robin, good to see you. I am always struck whenever I hear U.S. officials say, basically, we're doing our best, that they have to be right 100% of the time. The terrorists only have to be right once.
That's absolutely right, and that one time can have very devastating effects, especially when you think of the kind of weapons that terrorists are using today, be it guns or knives or trucks, as we increasingly see in Europe. It is an overwhelming problem for security services and law enforcement.
Why does it always seem that the terrorist is one step ahead? We're always the ones after an attack who have experts on, and they say, well, if only we had protected people who were leaving the stadium, as in the case of Manchester, everything would be fine, but nobody seemed to think of that before.
Well, so to my mind, it's about the scale of the threat and the amount of people that are of potential concern to law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Let me give an example from the UK. 23,000 people is the miss currently of concern to the UK security services. There's no way they haven't been able to track that amount of people, so you're always having to prioritise who do you follow, who do you carry out surveillance on, and we just can't get it right every time.
Note from the Las Vegas Review Journal coming out in the past 48 or so hours about a new Islamic State video. It showcases the Islamic State group's newly developed weapons, and its final scene has a series of shots including the Las Vegas Strip and New York's Times Square, while a narrator calls for general lone wolf attacks in America, Europe, and Russia. So you have ISIS calling for the lone wolf attacks. We saw the effects of those in vehicle-borne attacks, those kinds of things. But at the same time, we see in the London-Manchester attacks a fairly high level of sophistication in a real cell here.
Well, doesn't this just give you a perfect example of just how overwhelming the threat is at the moment? Because ISIS, groups like it, they have so many options, they have so many different forms of attack they can carry out, and ultimately have so many targets. Somewhere like Las Vegas, New York, high amounts of people, high concentration of people, they know that they can carry out devastating attacks, and the US can only do so much to stop it.
Back to Secretary Kelly, who said this on Fox and Friends yesterday morning.
I was telling Steve on the way in here, if he knew what I know about terrorism, he'd never leave the house in the morning. Yeah, but the good news is, again, we're the finest men and women in uniform, out of uniform, police officers, local law enforcement, New York City cops protecting us.
Does that have to be the answer? Of course, it was London's answer to Hitler's Blitz. It was New York's answer to 9/11. Does that have to be our answer? Trust that folks in uniform who put their lives on the line are doing their jobs and go about our normal day?
Absolutely. Trust in them, trust in the intelligence agencies that are doing selfless and hard work on this kind of issue. Make sure you fund those kind of agencies in order to give them the capacity to do so. But also, I do think that we should also retain our anger at some of this. I don't think we should just learn to accept that this is the new way of life for the years to be. I don't want there to be more attacks like Manchester, and I don't want it for the US either.
Well, and we keep hearing it every time something like this happens. If you see something, say something. In retrospect, it was always a neighbor who said, something gave me a funny feeling and I didn't do anything about it. Robin, appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now back out to Liz.
Between Memorial Day and Labor Day, around 4 million people will visit Ocean City, Maryland. It's when small business owners make their money, just like the small business owners